All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, first, have some more of that coffee because your energy is low right there.
Ugh.
But it is Wheel of Time Day, and we're continuing our theme that we've had the last few weeks because the world is dumb. And that theme is we're going to use Wheel of Time examples to talk about evil, but also rigid thinking and how they kind of go together. I have a nice example on rigid thinking going into this because there's a reel making the rounds on the Insta webs and TikToks and all of that. And for those that are just listening, it's going to be a jujitsu class that I don't even think I need to share this with sound. So we'll just go there. And if you can't see it, it is a jujitsu class, and it's labeled week two of putting jujitsu people in air jail to prove jujitsu is fake. And so this guy is basically getting out of every submission by just standing up. So there's the first one. Here's the second one. Looked like tried to be an armbar and he just stands up. Okay. Why does this fit? Okay, here's one. The guy's actually kind of heavy and he just stands up. He just gets up and tosses the guy down. Well, what does that have to do about what we're talking about? I was humbled this way early in my grappling career because I was about 180 pounds and I was rolling around in practice with one of the light heavyweights. So he was about 225 before cutting weight. And I was proud of myself. I got him in what would be textbook perfect armbar. And he got out of it by basically doing a bicep curl, standing up, and spiking me on my head. And that's when you learn weight classes matter, right? But what does that have to do with rigid thinking? Then later in my career, I learned a thing called a sweep. Every single one of those, the person who was being picked up could have stopped it by just grabbing the guy's heel. Why were they put in air jail? Because they wouldn't let go of the hold. You could have just taken one hand, grabbed the guy's heel, pulled him off balance, and then got back to what you were doing. Rigid thinking. I got the hold, I got the hold, I got the hold. Oh, now I'm on in the air and I'm on my head. You got to learn when to give and take. You got to learn how to adapt. You got to learn when you need to seek balance or actually take the world out of balance around you and which one's appropriate at the time. So yeah, this guy's getting probably a lot of money on Instagram Reels by posting these things and being it's like the dunking on Ben Shapiro videos, only it's the physical version of it. When all the person had to do was reach over and grab his heel.
Mhm. Yeah, that reminds me, years ago, I saw a clip of old man Gracie. I can't remember his name, the Hoyce's father, um,
Hmm.
complaining about the UFCification of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for that reason, that it was becoming a sport. And on the one hand, it's good. The UFC was good for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It really spread
Hmm.
the art all over the place. Everybody's doing it now, even if you're in some kind of not specifically BJJ class. If you're in any kind of mixed martial arts class, the ground game is going to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The problem was he was complaining about is it's not a sport. You can turn it into a sport, and it had been turned into a sport, but his complaint was it's not a sport, and now everyone who is teaching it is just teaching the sport.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and what people don't realize is it was designed for the smaller person.
Exactly.
The original Gracie who designed it was a very small guy. He was a very
Yep.
small guy. That's why the guard is so important because you're not going to be able to power wrestle somebody if you're that much smaller than their weight classes
Mm-hmm.
do matter. But what I think it was his nephew. Uh, I think it was his nephew. They would talk about that. They all everybody would talk about was the best one. Rorion, however you pronounce that in
Yeah, I had
Portuguese.
no idea.
Yeah, but they would talk about how he was basically gravity. When I talk about just grab the heel, it was like when he would get you, and they said it was like a black hole. You would just be sucked in, and you couldn't get away no matter how strong or powerful you were. And When I learned that subtle art to the whole thing, it changed everything. Sweeps and pulls and just keeping somebody off balance. I would sit there in a 3 hour practice and wear the hell out of people, even though
Hmm.
cardio is not my thing because of heart condition and all of that. Because I would just kind of shift my hips and shift my hips and shift my hips, and people would be working their ass off to get nowhere. They're running in sand. And when you learn that, it changes the entire game. But that takes letting go. Every single one of those people in that video could have fixed that situation and not been made a fool if they just knew when to let go.
Hmm.
It's Kenny Rogers, man. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, man. And if you don't know when to fold them, life's gonna be tough. I'm sorry.
That actually segues me into the thing that I was going to do later, but because I was looking for, we're going to talk about Rand specifically and the contrast between his thinking when he was really getting into the dark place and then after his, you know, kind of transformation. And I was thinking it was at the beginning of Memory of Light. It's actually way earlier than I thought. The scene I was looking for, it's in the beginning of Towers of Midnight. But while I was looking for it, I found the scene early on when Rand is talking to Perrin. And Perrin tells him that I'm not sure my wife likes you. And Rand is thinking, well, she'd be a fool to like me, and worrying about what he's going to require of Perrin and the danger he's going to put his friend in, but knowing he has to do it. Um,
Yeah, and I,
and
I think we need not this episode because I just thought about it right before we started, but we eventually need to transition from Rand to Matt because the contrast there when it comes to knowing when to fold them, we got to get the gambler in here somewhere.
yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so here it is. So this is page 89 of the first edition hardback, and um and Perrin says, I think she still worries you'll go mad and hurt me. The madness has already come, Rand said, and I have it in my grip. As for hurting you, she's probably right. I don't think I can avoid hurting those around me. It was a hard lesson to learn. You imply that you're mad, Perrin said. But Rand, you're not. You don't seem at all crazy to me. Rand smiled and a thought fluttered at the edge of his mind. I am mad, Perrin. My madness is these memories, these impulses. Loose Theron tried to take over. I was two people fighting over control of myself, and one of them was completely insane. Light, Perrin whispered. That sounds horrible. It wasn't pleasant, but here's the thing, Perrin. I'm increasingly certain that I needed those memories. Luz Theron was a good man. I was a good man, but things went wrong. I grew too arrogant. I assumed I could do everything myself. I needed to remember that. Without the madness, without these memories, I might have gone charging in alone again. I love that thought of what madness is.
Hmm.
And there is an element of rigid thinking there of I have to do it alone. I have to go it alone. I know what's going on. I know the right answer, and I'm going to charge head first in to get it done. You know, damn the consequences. And also this idea of, because this really, speaks to me personally, the idea that madness are these impulses you have, and that as Rand says, he now has it in his grip. It's not gone, doesn't go away, but he has learned why he needs to control it and then how to control it.
Hmm.
The why and the how, I think, go very close together.
I think control is the wrong word. I think the
Mm,
word is use.
mm,
Can you use your anger in a positive direction? Can you channel it in just the power, right? Can you channel it in a proper direction? And this is especially important when we're talking about dealing with young boys, young men, and how we can get past some of the stupid shit that's happening right now. Is it's not about controlling. It's not about sit down and shut up. It's about where do I channel that energy?
you know, add this to the never-ending list of things we wish we could ask Robert Jordan is, I wonder if he'd ever read or heard any of Bruce Lee.
Oh,
and
I
his
guarantee it.
philosophy.
He was so into Eastern philosophy that
Yeah,
I
because it
guarantee it.
it just occurred to me how much is Sidon referred to as a raging river.
Hmm.
And
Be water, my friend.
yeah, so you don't control the water, you direct it.
Hmm.
You don't, even if you have a small creek. Clarkson's Farm. I recently rewatched the first season of Clarkson's Farm, and he is trying to dam up this very small creek so that he can dig up a pond, and then he'll unleash the creek to fill up the pond. The water keeps finding a way around or through the dam.
Hmm.
Like 2 or 3 episodes, so weeks if not months of him working on this, and he can't control the water. Yeah, you can't. You just have to redirect it. And in fact, even when we do dam something up, it is a very fine balance between holding the water back and when you open those sluice gates so you don't have too much pressure. You're not really in control. You're just redirecting to use that water.
Here we go.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water, 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 like water, like water. Water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Water can flow or it can crash. Be water.
And that is Rand here at the end. He has learned when to flow and when to crash. Um, Here shortly after the scene from Towers of Midnight that I'm going to use in a little bit is the Storm of Lights when he goes to Malden to save um brain fart. What's his bucket? The wolf, the general, the great
Oh,
general,
Bashir? No, no,
not
no.
Bashir.
Ideralda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oy. And he says it might have been a mistake, but it needed to be done. And that is him crashing. And it
Hmm.
takes a lot out of him. But he needed to rescue those people for his own sake, for their sake, for the sake of his whole army that was going to follow him, to know that I've got your back. But also, even though he overextended himself and he said it may have been a mistake, he also needed to confront the evil and say, don't don't get too full of yourself. Don't think you've won. Don't think we're weak. We can still punch back.
Hmm.
And so that was him crashing.
Well, and
Whereas as he's
y-
talking to Perrin here, he's talking about flowing.
yeah, I keep it connected to real life. You used a good word there, punch. Uh, for those that don't know, your punch is no good if you're too rigid, if you're too tense. Look at some of these. Go back to old mixed martial arts days when it was still like forming, when it was budding, and people were coming in with one skill set or one thing. And look at the big muscly guys that would just come in there and be like, I'm stronger than everybody else and I can win. Watch them hit somebody in the face and nothing happens. But also look at their muscles, and every muscle in their body is tense when they do it. If your triceps and your biceps are tense at the same time, you're not hitting very hard because they're antagonist muscles, which means they're working against each other. If your back and your chest are tense at the same time, you're working against yourself. And one of the hardest skills I actually have to teach athletes is learn to relax. We throw medicine balls and do stuff like that. And when I say go 100% and they tense up, it's never hard. It just comes at me and I just catch it and I toss it back. If they're relaxed and loose, I say just go 70%. And they whip that thing out there, that hurts. It hurts to catch that damn thing. So the same thing when they're on the pitching mound. If they're wound up and they're in the moment, what is it? Our guy here in Houston, Framer, he gets so tense, and that's why he chokes in those big moments because he gets real rigid and tight, and then he starts missing his spots and not getting his velo. So learning to relax while you're creating force is how you punch hard, is how you throw a ball hard, is how you actually don't get injured when you play. So we do it with running mechanics, with sprinters. Your hamstrings have to be firing, but your quads have to be relaxed, which is hard to do because you have to reverse that in about a tenth of a second.
I was trying to find, there's a good example of that is Max Scherzer, who didn't really have a significant injury until sadly he came to the Rangers until he was about 40 years old.
Well, those
And
that
if you,
watch mixed martial arts while you're looking that up, Anderson Silva knocked
mm,
more people out than almost anybody at the time. And look how little he is. Look how small he is. Look at how his hand just whips out there. It's the wrecking ball versus the sledgehammer, right?
yeah. And so, okay, so, and one of the reasons we use Eric Cressy as one of our go-to resources for physical stuff, especially the upper body, is he's Max Scherzer's strength and conditioning coach.
Mm.
And you look here at the ridiculous arm angle, the ridiculous level of um, external rotation there. If he was tense, he could not only could he not do that, he would have hurt himself a long time ago.
Hmm.
And for those of you just listening, his
He's got about 175 degrees of external rotation on that
yeah,
shoulder. Almost a full 180. Yeah.
his forearm is pointing almost straight back from his body. And that what that does is because he's a longer, leaner guy, it turns that arm into a whip. And that is why he is able to throw with such velocity, even though he doesn't have a lot of mass.
Well, and
You
I'm
know,
looking at his whole
280
body
pounds.
because this is what I do for a living. But that whip started from the push off with
Mm-hmm.
his foot, and then you're going up the chain, and what you're looking for is a controlled tension all the way up. So there's no power leaking. It's actually power increasing through his leg, through his hip, through his abs. Look at his chest. He's got that extra extension. His T-spine is rotated back and his shoulder is rotated back, but his elbow is in perfect alignment. So he's actually protecting his elbow right there. So that's a great picture right there because you can see every bit of that power formation and lack of power leak. And that's why he's so good.
Mm-hmm. And was so good for so long.
Hmm. Well,
Ridiculously long career with very few injuries.
yeah, well, I'm just going to talk about it because I was looking for a video, but you said Cressy. My first thought was Stu McGill, who's McGill Institute, the back institute of basically the back guy of the world. If you're looking for back health, but he worked with fighters like George St. Pierre is a great example, and it's not only just that controlled tension, but it's also timing because he talks about the pulse and not the stupid Sanderson talking about getting the pulse of the battle from Matt, but no, the pulse is in what is the pulse of the movement, and something like a golf swing has two pulses. So when you whip the golf club back, there's a pulse when you change direction, and there's a pulse when it hits the ball.
Hmm.
And so you work on that pulse, and he would do exercises like with St. Pierre was take the weighted medicine ball and a rope, and you swing it overhead, but it wasn't just swinging it overhead and making it go. It was, I'm going to time my breath when I need that to accelerate. So it'd be, and then you get them, take them away from that, and have them kick a bag. And there's two pulses, the pulse when the foot leaves the ground and the pulse when the foot hits the bag. Poof, poof. And your muscles have to contract, relax, contract again to have the maximum impact. And so it is learning how to contract and relax at the exact same time, which is, again, it's for me, it's the hardest thing to teach these athletes in sport.
Well, that's so I'm ending up working backwards because of where our thoughts are taking us here. I was going to read the Path of Daggers one first, but we'll actually start with Goodrand because this is chapter 13 from Towers of Midnight, and I love this chapter because it's a Min point of view, and she's great, especially late, but also
M-I-N for those
yeah.
listening. M-I-N.
Um,
I do hate that he named her that because it makes it hard to talk about her.
well, especially because we talk so much about gender dynamics because that is a major component of the story and of the
Mhm.
world that he created. Um, but not just because it's from her point of view, and you actually get a couple chapters in a row here from her point of view, 12 chapters 12 and 13, but um I like how we get to see the new Rand so much before we get his own thoughts. It was I think a great way to illustrate this transformation. But then also, as we said, as we were going through it in our reread, it was probably also an element of so many of these chapters and scenes were being written by Sanderson and not by RJ. And so it was probably easier for him to do it that way. And I'm guessing a lot of the Rand stuff was written by RJ because he wanted that
Hmm.
perfect. Because that's the main crux of it. We are reaching the end here, and so it's important that the main character is perfect. Anyway, but this is chapter 13. The other reason I love this is because this is one of my favorite lines in the whole freaking series. You know, the millions of words here. And you wool-headed fool, 3 days. What have you been doing for 3 days? Existing, men.
Hmm.
I, I love that line. You know, that is very much going back to Bruce Lee and being water. He's just flowing.
Hmm.
You know, he's just flowing. And as she said, I wasn't aware that was such a difficult task. It has been for me at times. Why? Because he was very rigid and
Hmm.
not in the good way that he wants to be when he's around men. Giggity. M-I-N. Um,
Nope.
but he had gotten incredibly rigid in his thinking. And actually now I'll jump over to what sparked this thought is my son is on Path of Daggers, and he sent me a text with a picture of the he's on page 466. I don't remember the name of the chapter. Um, but this is where he's gathering up his forces to go attack the Sanshin
Hmm.
along the border there. And remember, he has collected all of these people he doesn't trust and he doesn't like. Why? As he tells Bashir, who better to pay the butcher's bill? That's not good.
No,
And as my
that's
son said,
Stalin-like talk.
it is a stark contrast, and it really shows how far Rand fell and how quickly he fell um, into this dark place. Because old Rand, books 1 to 5, I would say, he wouldn't have even thought this. And if he did think this, he would berate himself of, dude, what's wrong with you? Why would you have that thought? Of now, this is
Well, there's a
specifically,
moment. There were moments in book three where he wouldn't have.
yeah. Well,
He was he
he
was
really
he
was
was
crazy.
in a headspace at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is specifically about Wiremon, is who he's thinking about here. Too stupid to leave behind, too powerful to shove aside. So he rode with Rand and thought himself honored. It was almost a pity he was not stupid enough to do something that would get him executed. Now, think back to that letter from Robert Jordan talking about the Forsaken and
Hmm.
what makes them evil. They don't care who gets hurt, either directly by them or indirectly because of their actions. They don't care who gets hurt and how they get hurt and how much they hurt, so long as that individual, that Forsaken, achieves their goal.
Hmm.
That's what evil is. That is his definition of evil, and it is a good definition. Uh, that it encompasses this these various mental states where you demonstrate a lack of empathy, um, all the way up to and including people like Simmerhaj, full on sadist who enjoy the hurt. That's a bonus to them achieving their goals is seeing other people be hurt.
And that's where I struggle with my thoughts on, I've thought we've talked about the positive uh affects of sociopathy and psychopathy and everything, and all of those things. The sadist is the one that throws all of that out of the way because they actually enjoy it.
Hmm.
They do it for the enjoyment of it. But on the evil you're talking about, I have up here the bed of Procustus, who the legend there is. Let me bring it up here. Well, Wikipedia is good when you're not talking politics. But Procustus was the stretcher. He's known as a stretcher. He was a smith, right? And he had a bed. And if you didn't fit in the bed, if you were too tall, he would cut off your legs. If you were too short, he would stretch you out because the bed is all that mattered. It wasn't the person going into the bed. So that's what we would call antisocial behavior. That there is this thing and I need to do this thing and it doesn't matter what happens. There's that kind of evil. But then there's the people who enjoy it. What we don't
Hmm.
get from Percusis that he actually was looking to do that. He would just take travelers in and be like, "Oh, you can have this bed." And if they didn't fit in the bed, he would make them fit. Make them fit in the box. That's rigid thinking, and that's how rigid thinking can be evil.
You know, boy, there's a thought is doubly evil because not only are the direct harm you're doing to that person, but then the harm they're going to create because of what you're doing to their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Rand was put in a box.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are in that passage I just read, book 8, Path of Daggers. That's very quickly after he got out of the box. And we talked about how his downward spiral accelerated after that incident because of that.
Mm,
That helped harden him rather than strengthen him. That he started treating people the way he was treated
mm. Yeah.
because so much of what those Aes Sedai did to them, it did to Rand. It was about revenge and retribution. You hurt me
Mm-hmm.
by killing one of my warders. I want to hurt you from whichever Aes Sedai that was, and then from I think it was Katerin who was leading things. Wait, no, Katerin was on is the other one on the good side, I
No,
think.
yeah, you're thinking of hold on.
The red who was the black who was leading things once
Get it
they
starts with a G.
Galena.
Galena, yes, because
Okay,
he's the one that's captured by the Shido.
yeah, I
Yeah.
okay, right. So the Aes Sedai whose warders were killed, she wants retribution. I want to hurt you because you hurt me, and then Galena is trying to break him.
Mm,
I'm going to break you so you will do what I want. That's what Rand is doing a lot.
mm,
You know that becomes his ruling and leading style. And it's right there in that passage from Path of Daggers of boy, I wish you would do something stupid enough that I could kill you. But in the meantime, I'm gonna put you here in the front where things are nasty, and maybe I'll get lucky and you'll die. What about all those other guys that are following him because they have to follow him, and they're the ones paying the butcher's bill, and for all you know, they're true believers in your cause.
hmm
Whatever. This Wiremon's
Or
the
they're just
problem.
really good
I got to
dudes,
get rid
or
of him.
they maybe just
Yeah,
want to go home to their families, or any of those number of
yeah,
things.
but Wiremon's a problem, and I got to deal with him because he's
Hmm.
annoying me.
Yeah, put it in
That
a
is
box.
forsaken thinking right there.
Hmm.
That is absolutely forsaken thinking. Not just what we see in the text, but then again back to that letter of what Jordan describes as evil.
Hmm.
Um,
But
and
you can go
then
back even to Luce Theron with his attack on the Dark One. His rigid thinking, we need to do this, we need to do this way, da da da,
mhm,
got him to lose the allies he needed, but also the allies he needed in their rigid thinking of, well, we can't do that, lost the next 3,000 years
yeah,
for humanity. So it was both of them not being on the same page and being in their own worlds mentally.
that's a good point because there that scene from A Memory of Light where he's talking to Perrin, that's what he's talking about is it hurts, and it was a difficult lesson to learn, but I've learned it, and I don't like it, but I know I have to do it. Of people I like, people I trust, people who are my friends are going to be put in harm's way, but I can't do this alone. And here in this chapter in Towers of Midnight, this is the chapter where he tells Min, I need you to do something for me. You have got this incredible mind and this different way of looking at things than these other people who are too rigid intellectually because they think they know everything about the prophecies, but you've been sitting here digging through all these esoteric philosophy books and really deeply thinking and thinking differently about the prophecies. And it's because, and this is why we love her so much as a character, is because she's not digging into the prophecies so that Rand will achieve the objective for the light. She's digging into the prophecies because she genuinely cares about Rand the man
Hmm.
and wants to help him and help him succeed, but help him hold on to himself, literally live in this case, but then also all the way up to this point, hold not lose himself in his own mind. And so this is when Rand tells her, you're the one who can figure this out. There's a puzzle with Kalendor. Kalendor is somehow key to what I need to do, and I haven't figured that out yet. I need you to do it. And so he's not afraid to ask her. He recognizes that she can do this, and he recognizes that he can't.
Hmm.
And it's that is why this one chapter is so deep, because this all is leading up to him telling Darlin, line up all the High Lords and ladies, line them all up to receive me. And then he goes down the line looking at each one in the eye. But even before we get there, it's this is where rigid thinking can lead you into darkness, which can ultimately lead you into doing evil and then becoming evil, which is what Rand did.
Hmm.
He started out doing evil and he became evil. That there's no other way to phrase it, of when he took on the true power and then started using it
Hmm.
and was going to nuke a whole city just cause uh, he'd become evil. Now, luckily, there was enough of the goodness left that he could claw his way back,
Well, and
but it
you
went
say
good.
that in him, but also there was enough goodness in the world, and that I think was a
Yeah,
something the Tinkers represented, was that bit of the
that's a
world
good point.
that tries to be good no matter what is around them.
Yeah. Um, all right, so where is it? Um, so there's this sophomoric train of thought amongst the youthful right, especially the right, but especially the youthful right, that because the right, the Republican Party, the conservative movement has not achieved its goals and in fact has lost a lot, therefore we should take on the tactics of the left. This is a
Hmm.
lot of what I think
That's
he's
what we called the woke right too. Yeah,
that is,
yeah.
yeah, exactly, is where there are times where I think Lindsay is going off the rails here with the woke right and who he labels as woke right. But the initial idea of there is this group on the right that is using the same tactics of the woke left, yeah, that's a problem. That's not good. It's also not necessary. So when Rand lines them all up, um, form a line, Rand said, walking up to them. The high lords and ladies looked at him confused. A line, Rand said, voice loud and firm. Now, not that long ago, he would have been shouting and raving and livid, just in a rage that they weren't doing exactly what he wanted, exactly when he wanted it.
Hmm.
Just a few days ago, he would have nuked them for not doing exactly what he wanted, how he wanted, when he wanted. Now he has the self-confidence to just loudly and firmly, not with anger, not with rage, say, "Hey, pay attention, do it." And they do, because he exudes that authority. Not anger, not rage, not "I'm going to beat the crap out of you if you don't do what I want," just authoritatively, "Hey, listen, do this."
Mm-hmm.
So he's demonstrating that he truly has learned the lesson and taken it to heart and understands, not only shouldn't I do what I was doing, I don't have to do what I was doing. I can get what I want without being a raving madman, angry jerk, lunatic. And the last part of why this scene is so great, and especially in contrast to those moments from Path of Daggers where he's trying to get these people killed to get them out of his way. So he just walks down the line and looks them in the eye. And Rand began to walk down the line, down the row, starting with Darlin, looking each man or woman in the eye. Rand's emotions were curious. Remember, this is from Min's point of view, so she can feel what he feels. Perhaps a touch angry. What was he doing? The courtyard grew still. Rand continued down the line, looking at each of the nobles in turn, not speaking. Min glanced to the side. Near the end of the line, Warmon kept glancing at Rand, then looking away. The tall man had thin and graying hair, his beard oiled to a point. Rand eventually reached him. "Meet my eyes, Warmon," Rand said softly. "My Lord Dragon, surely I am not worthy to." "Do it." Warmon did so with an odd difficulty. He looked as if he was gritting his teeth, his eyes watering. "So it is you," Rand said. Min could feel his disappointment. Rand looked to the side where Aniela stood last in line. The pretty woman had pulled away from Rand, her head turned. "Both of you." "My lord," Wireman began. "I want you to deliver a message for me," Rand said, "to the others of your association. Tell them that they cannot hide from my ally among my allies any longer. Tell them," Rand continued, voice soft but demanding, "that I am no longer blind." "Why?" Aniela said. "Why are you letting us go?" "Because today is a day of reunion," Rand said, "not a day of death. Go." I mean, that literally gives me goosebumps
Mm-hmm.
because the scene is so good, the moment is so good, the character is so good. There's this huzzah moment of, not only is he authoritative, but Rand is back to being the good guy.
Well, yeah, yeah, and that's key because it became justice, not revenge.
Yes.
And
He would have been within, no one would have blinked an eye if he would have smoked them right then and there. But as he said, today is not the day for that.
mhm.
There will be plenty of killing down the road, and right now I need to uplift myself and my allies.
Yeah, and there's a kind of a trend going now where it's made more public, but I mean I guess it was always a thing, but it's made more public now. The final speeches of the victims of crimes
Mm.
towards the person who was sentenced, and it's become a show. It's become a show of let me get that last word in. Let me get this, this vengeful thought out of my head, which I mean, I understand the psychology behind letting the victim have that, but it's become a show now and it's become public. And I don't like it. I don't like that because I'm hearing these speeches and I'm like, was this for TikTok or was this for your own health? And it's ruining. uh, it's one more thing of how unhealthy mentally we're becoming. Because revenge is addictive. It actually fires up the same parts of your brain that are associated with substance abuse. So if you satisfy that need in front of everybody and get the clicks and the likes for it, are you going to become a revenge whore?
It was standard practice in our tribal days. Um, I say tribal, but I don't necessarily mean like prehistory. I just mean our tribal way of thinking
Hmm.
before the Enlightenment, before the Renaissance, before we started to think maybe we shouldn't do this. A jury of your peers was a big effing advancement for culture, for civilization, and was very radical because
Hmm.
it was standard practice and still is in a lot of places that the aggrieved party was the one who passed judgment.
Hmm.
Even if some kind of magistrate or judge panel or whatever um, determined guilt or innocence, it was the aggrieved party that passed sentence.
Hmm. Which is why
That's not a
Perrin
good thing.
struggled so much
Mm,
as his first like kind of soiree into being a ruler was how can I do this? Why is it on me? What's on you because you're not the aggrieved party.
mhm.
You should have no emotional investment in this.
Letting the aggrieved party take out their vengeance is how you get the Hatfields and McCoys,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it is why that it is why that kind of thing exists and it persists because once it gets started, it keeps rolling, and then
Yeah,
it's
and
well now it's my turn.
that's why in healthy societies, forgiving tit for tat is actually better than tit for tat
Hmm.
because we have these things called signal errors where I think you wronged me, but did you really wrong me?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're going to keep crossing the streams here with our social episodes because there is a very strong tie-in to that scene with Rand, and it had already kind of been percolating in the back of my mind when my son sent me that contrast with his thinking during Path of Daggers because of the looking them in the eye bit. And
Hmm.
I was trying to find who I had seen post this, but I really loved this sentiment that um, someone had made a point several days ago about how the reason you don't see someone like Charlie Kirk on the left is because the radical left doesn't want debate.
Hmm.
Why? Well, because to debate someone, you have to stand or sit with them and look them in the eye.
I would say it's worse than that because what you get on the radical left, and again, center became a different thing in the last several years. So you're like, oh, you're far right. No, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
Everything leans this way. No, because what you get on the other side of Charlie Kirk, who is the number one person on the left that debates people right now? We brought him up in the last episode. You have Destiny.
Jeez.
And Destiny is the worst of the worst.
The first
That's
name to
what you
pop into
get.
my head was Sam Harris, and I was like, oh no, you're going dumb. Okay.
No, no. Well, Sam Harris actually still avoids people. Have you seen him and Peterson talk lately?
That's a good point.
Have you seen him and Gadzad talk lately?
I'm trying to remember if I have seen him on
He did
with
talk with
someone.
Peterson like a year, like not that long ago.
Yeah,
But I think Peterson kind of threw some softballs in that one. But
yeah. But I mean he sat down and he talked with trigonometry and things kind of blew up with a are you effing kidding me?
oh
With his
God.
comments there. And he hasn't actually been on
Well, because his
very
comments
much.
were everything everybody was saying about it.
Yeah.
They were like, "You have TDS," and he's like, "I don't have TDS, but if Hunter Biden had dead babies in his basement, I wouldn't care as long as Trump lost the election."
Hmm.
He basically said, "I don't have TDS," and then made a statement that was the
Hmm.
most extreme version of that you can have. It'd be like, hey, everybody says literally Hitler, right? It's like, yeah, but Hitler could have been running against Trump and I would have voted for Hitler. That I mean, he could have said that. That's how bad it was. And yeah, so but no, Destiny is the other side's version of that. And if you don't know who Destiny is, just look him up. listen to a few things he said, and you're going to say, oh my God,
Mhm.
this person is famous?
That is someone who is either, I mean, you tell me, you're the expert on the definitions here, psychopathic or sociopathic, because either he is so vile that he genuinely thinks these things, or he doesn't care because it gets him clicks and engagement.
Psychopathology is not, a psychopath is not a designated term.
Mm,
Because
mm,
psychopathology is psychology pathology. So
mm,
everything that's considered a pathology is psychopath. So antisocial personality disorder, I do think he has that
yeah.
because he doesn't care. He will say whatever he needs to say, and we can speculate about his motivations. I'm not going to officially say these are his motivations, but it seems like it gets the clicks from the people he wants to. He is captured by his audience.
I think the big difference with what Charlie Kirk did that really separated him and
Was he
also
believed what he said?
really helped him. Well, no, there's definitely that. You could
Mhm.
tell that he believed what he said, but he would sit down with the destinies of the world and talk to them and debate them.
Did he
But
ever debate Destiny?
so,
That's a good question. Hold
so,
on.
so
While you're doing that,
we brought up the Oxford Union president and last time and the awful things that he said after Kirk was assassinated. So he did do that where he would debate uh you know
he
someone
did.
of some amount of prominence. But most of what he did, what he was doing when he was murdered, is talking to normal people. And this was the point this person was trying to make is you can call someone specific like Charlie Kirk or generally the MAGA right. You can call them all kinds of nasty ists and phobes, but then when you actually sit down with them and look them in the eye and realize, oh, this is just a person who happens to disagree with me.
Hmm.
This isn't a monster. This isn't a caricature. This is another human being. And if you have any degree of empathy left in you, you know, back to Rand as our example, to your point, there was enough good left in him and in the world that he came back from his darkness.
Hmm.
There are people who are so far gone or are in a place where they don't see the good and they can't or don't or won't come back. So
Well,
that is definitely a thing. But for normal people who still have some amount of empathy, you can't sit down with another human being and maintain that ist and phobes and monsters if you're actually having a connection, a conversation.
this is the impact I'm having in school and I am seeing in school. So it's healthy for me and it's healthy for the people around me because it's going both ways. Is I like the format now that there's only like half the class is lecture. The other half is discussion. And when I get in these groups of people, uh, one of the ones that stands out was the speed dating one we did in social psych, because I actually was the date of the professor for a part of it.
Yeah.
And she's the definition of awful. She is the trainers of awful. She trains awfuls. Okay. Again, for those, if you might be your first episode, affluent white female lefty, right? Uh, and she was like, at about 2 minutes in, because I can be a charming person, we were just like having a great old conversation. In fact, she had set a timer and she reset the timer so we could talk longer. And that's the way it is in these groups. We're talking, they'll spit out things like patriarchy and capitalism and da 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 da. And then you start talking to them. And what did the little girl say? This last girl, she's 23 years old, but compared to me, she's way younger. I said something and she goes, "That's fair. That's fair." And I was like, "Yeah, it is because it's real life." And we just were that was the aging class, which is great because we I might go into some of that at the end of this episode on healthy aging with rigid thinking, but you start to see the humanity in somebody, and the person you had judged first. I get this all the time in school. I'm a little surprised talking to you. Well, yeah, because you saw a white male.
Hmm.
White straight male is what you saw. Slightly masculine, a little bit more masculine than the average, right? And you had judged things from that. And frankly, I judged things from you because you're a female in the social sciences. But we talked to each other. We looked each other in the eye, and I do make a point to make good eye contact when I talk. And we looked each other in the eyes. We said the things we needed to say, and we didn't hold back. And oh my gosh, it wasn't that bad. And we need more of that in the world. And that's
Hmm.
what Rand had to learn because he kept having situations where someone would look him in the eye and lie to his face, like Weramon. And that sucks. That makes you pissed at the world. When someone looks you in the eye, lies to your face, and you find out about it later, that's the seed of bitterness right there.
Eh, back to being put in a box is the raging Aes Sedai that beat him every night. He looked her in the eye. She looked at him, fury, and he was. It was a kind of a contest of wills because he was trying. He was clenching his teeth until his jaw hurt. So I'm not going to cry out. You won't break me. And she is just her eyes are raging. So
Yeah, but
he's
that's
looked.
even more refreshing because that is genuine. They were honest with each other. They were honest with each other there.
That's a good point because
Waramon, when he looks him in the
who
eye later, he found the betrayal.
who is the oh, I always forget his name. The like the guy when it comes to the psychology of uh, relationships and couples counseling and whatnot. And
Adam Lane Smith.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he has said that anger's fine. Anger's good actually, because that means there's a there. That means there's something there's emotion
Anger means
still
you
there.
care.
Anger means you care. Yeah,
Yeah.
the, the death of the relationship is apathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you come in and your eyes are dead and you're apathetic and there's no emotion and there's no coming back. Y'all are checked out.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking for affirmation here to check the box. You're done.
Yeah.
You
You
know.
want to say you tried by coming to me as your counselor, and that's it.
And if I recall, that Aes Sedai who beat him was one of the ones who became one of his faithful followers after swearing fealty to him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which that's just the Tavarinness. Well, that just means it's improbable. That doesn't mean it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, it also means it brings balance. So her anger balanced out with her loyalty later.
mm, yeah. So so the point is
We strayed so far from the point.
Rand as he spirals down into darkness, one of the reasons is, and one of the contributing factors which makes it worse, is he starts to see people as widgets,
Hmm.
as pieces on a board to move around. And this becomes
Which
worse when
I'm
he
sorry,
loses
let me get
Moraine.
political for a second. You say, why are you so anti-left, Sam? Because that's what communism is. You are a widget.
Mhm.
You are a cog in the machine. That's the whole point of it. You are no longer you. It's in the name. Commune. Communism, which we are social beings, yes, but also you are an individual. If you become a widget in the machine, the big thing I want to just smack my fellow students upside the head with is to each according to their means and to each according to their ability. You will be surprised how much ability you're expected to have when someone is making that decision for you instead of you making that decision for yourself
Mhm.
because they can't feel how tired you are. I work people out for a living. I have to be very good at reading faces and listening to what they're saying to know if I'm going too far. And I don't get it right all the time. Now, disconnect yourself from somebody over in Capitol Hill who can't see you, feel you, or do anything. except what are you producing for everybody else? That's what everybody's like, oh, capitalism. Oh, everybody's so tired because of the money machine. Oh, yeah? Imagine how tired you are going to be because you're the feeding machine, because you're the part of the machine. No.
So this is a little bit of tying this back in. There was I think it's the latest episode of Trigonometry on their YouTube channel where it's just Kissin and Foster sitting down and having a conversation primarily about
I'm
Kirk.
halfway through it. I'm halfway through it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Foster makes the point, and I was kind of annoyed with Kissin on this because I think he missed the point about,
I'm a Foster fan. I like
yeah.
Kissing, but yeah, Foster's
So
my
Foster
favorite.
makes a point about how social media is aggravating all this. And Kissin reflexively pushes back, but it seems because he seems to infer that Foster is excusing. Foster's not excusing, he's just pointing out the problem. It
Hmm.
it's not an excuse, but it is a reason that social media is making all of this worse because we are interacting, but we are not connecting. Because you don't connect if you don't sit down with another human being. I mean, we are connecting on another level here, you and I, because we are actually seeing each other and I can look into your eye, but that still pales in comparison to actually being present with someone.
Hmm. Yeah.
There,
Well, I
there's
mean,
a lot
even
of
just a
witchcraft
little,
that goes on
yeah,
when
the
I'm
little
present with
disconnect.
you.
Like I'm looking at your eyes right now, but I'm not looking at the camera, so I'm not actually looking into your eyes. So even
Yes.
those little things have an impact. It's so much better when we're sitting out on my patio and having a cigar
Yeah.
and talking over these things. I wish we need to just put a camera up one of these times because w those conversations we try to recreate here
Yeah.
and it's not as good. It's just not as good. It seems a little staged. It seems a little not as fun. And we don't script anything that we do.
Yeah.
We have like, oh, what do you want to talk about today? Oh, I want to talk about this. And that's as far as we go, as far
Yeah.
as
We
scripting.
might have some notes. We might have some tabs of
Hmm.
stories or articles or videos, ready to go that we want to use. Um, and it isn't the same, and it is making this lack of connection so much worse. And I haven't I mentioned this a long time ago, and I think the Kirk thing has brought it back into my mind recently
He's
because
broken. This thing has broken the world.
yeah, because
Yeah.
there have been a number of people posting things along the lines of, I didn't realize how many of my friends and family would cheer if I was murdered for my beliefs.
Hmm.
And they're absolutely right because, you
Well,
know,
I'm going to add a layer to that. How many people would cheer because of what people told them my beliefs were?
yeah, or what, back to your interactions in class, what you assumed they were
Hmm.
based on whatever criteria you use to establish that.
I
And
guarantee you, if I polled my class, that aging class, which is my social awareness class that I have to take, what religion do you think I am? Out of 23 students that are not me, so there's 24 total in the class, how many would say Christian, do you think?
80%,
80%?
I
Yeah,
think they would
that
look and
would
see
that
what, uh,
I think it would actually be 100%. I think it would be 100%. Even the people that are in my group talking to me,
mm,
because we've never talked about religion. So if we've never talked about religion, they don't know and they're going to assume, right? If you've never
married white man in the South who seems to have right-leaning values. And I say
compared
seems
to them,
because
compared to them, yes.
again, go back to the meme of the guy
Hmm.
sprinting off to the left and saying, "When did you become so radical?" That's you. Is
My
seems to have
best
right-leaning
friend in the
values.
class has a trans child. And we've talked about it, and I've been compassionate the entire time. And she would probably still think I'm conservative.
Hmm. This so the genesis of where I am at now, politically and philosophically, began back in 2012-ish, whenever it was that the gay marriage case was in front of the Supreme Court. And I had a number of young lefty friends making incendiary posts on Facebook about how if you don't support, marriage equality and love wins, as if that's somehow a legal or philosophical principle, then you are an ist. You are a homophobe, Bible thumping theocrat. And I, virtually raised my hand on a lot of these and said, I'm one of them. We've sat down together. We've broken bread. We've had fun in fellowship, playing board games or pen and paper or tabletop games, and sharing a meal and laughing and spending time together. That what you think about me? And some of them had the intellectual honesty to go, well, maybe I was a little incendiary. Yeah, but, or, and some of them would be, yeah, but your leadership. Yeah, but your elected officials, whatever.
which I've beefed about, right? It's like just because you were elected because of this good thing you did doesn't mean you can impose this other thing that you believe. We talked, that was our big argument with DeSantis, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we went back and forth on him because he was reelected by a huge majority because of his COVID policies. But on the other side of that, he imposed his abortion policies. And we've debated about those. Go back to, I think it's 68, I think is the episode. It would have been better if it was 69 if we were talking about abortion, but you know, it's it's somewhere in that line, but it's labeled abortion, a debate is what it's called. Abortion, a debate. And he came in, he had all these things, and so we complained about that and we talked about that, and we've been intellectually honest. Your leadership, well, what is your leadership doing? What is your leadership doing? I know what I live in the burbs of Houston, which is a little more right leaning, but Houston itself is not. And guess what had to happen? The freaking Texas state AG had to come in and take over the judicial system because we're doing what they did in Carolina, where this guy gets 14 convictions and then murders somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, what is your leadership doing? Why do we have to pick between that leadership and this leadership? Why can't we just have actual leaders that listen and do
Yeah.
what they're supposed to do?
And that's back to the assumptions and the putting people in boxes and putting labels on them and sticking them in boxes is, oh, well, you voted this way, therefore you are. No, I just that was the pros and cons cost benefit analysis I made. And next time I might make a different one. But you are making all of these assumptions and painting with this incredibly broad brush, and you have met one of those people, was my point. Is all of those people, which is a big chunk of the country, that you say is a homophobe for opposing, gay marriage. And I don't want to unpack that, but I have and I do, and I trace the tranny madness back to that.
That's in our history. Our
Yep.
words are on the interwebs.
It's it's
We,
it's
we've
it's on
we've
the internet
debated
for
that and we've
eternity
talked
now.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But my point was, forget the issue itself for a moment. Can you just have a little human compassion and understanding and know what you don't know? And maybe painting with this broad of a brush, with this incendiary of a language, is a bad thing. This was over a decade ago. Okay. We are coming up on 15 years since that Supreme Court case. Has it gotten better or worse?
On that,
Because
in that one arena, I actually think it's gotten better because the people who were fighting for that are now fighting against the really ridiculous stuff as well. Because and this is why I'm
the
saying that, because you can't have gay without gender. You can't have gay without a binary in sex.
yeah,
So
yeah.
one cannot exist without the other. The trans movement, I'm no, I'm not even going to say the trans movement because there has always been dysphoria.
Mhm.
I'm going to say the queer movement. And by definition, queer is anything that opposes the norm. The queer movement, the queer theory movement has ruined everything. The queer theory movement was the hand grenade thrown into all the other stuff. All the other letters don't matter anymore with the Q in there.
Well, I in some ways it has gotten better. To your point, yeah, it is. I mean,
Oh,
look,
the LBG is opposed to the T2 spirit, blah, 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 blah. Keep going. Yeah.
Andy, no, guy we've brought up, we've used
Yeah.
his reporting, and oh,
One of
this
my best
radical
friends is
conservative,
bisexual.
gay Asian
And
man from Portland, but you people have lost your ever loving minds.
yeah,
So
one of
yeah,
my
that's
best
why he
friends is
appears.
bisexual. My former business partner was uh lesbian, excuse me. For some reason I could not think of the L for some reason. You know, it's like these are they're all normal people because we understand biology.
But to
I
my
am a
point,
woman that is
yeah.
attracted to other women. Women being defined as human female, right?
So I
Adult
made this
human
point
female. Yeah.
last time is that in some ways, though, I feel like it's gotten worse because um, while the extremely radical portion of the left is small relative to the total population, I feel like it has grown significantly within the left itself.
Well, because they understand power.
So,
They
so
understand
the
how power works. We
yeah,
talked about this in the last episode,
yeah,
how they integrated themselves in the education system, how they've integrated themselves into the administration fields. That actually created a very powerful system for them to take control. And then big giant businesses that want to, benefit from things like uh, bailouts from the government have embraced that because that keeps us all separated so that the government can bail them out and they can make their millions of dollars. BlackRock, Blackstone,
mhm,
Vanguard, all of these different companies that are benefited from these big government bailouts are donating to keep us separated.
mhm. And the separation is the key here. This is what I'm really harping on: is this separation, this last lack of connection, and and how I think it has gotten worse because back in 2012, if you know some friend of one of my homosexual friends had gotten all been out of shape and indignant and furious over my comments and come and shot me in the throat, I don't think any of those people I was arguing with online would have said, well, he had it coming,
Mm.
or celebrated it. Or I think every one of them, no matter how vigorously they disagreed with me, would have said, oh my gosh, what the heck is wrong with you? He was wrong, but you're more wrong because, murder is worse than speech. I don't know how many of them would do that now. Because we have become so warped. We have gone so far into the darkness and we aren't connecting with people. I loved the point you made about Rand not just being enough good within himself, but I mean, walking through that Tinker camper, not just walking through, he spent the night with them. He shared a
Mhm.
meal with them. I think that I may have overlooked that a little bit when we were
Well, and this is
rereading it. That's a
this
big
is one
deal.
place I think Sanderson dropped the ball, and Jordan might have dropped the ball by not having a proper note for this. The Tinkers were more important than they ended up being. Rand had that moment, but you look at Perrin's storyline, they were the antithesis to his animal instinct.
Hmm.
And we didn't get that from Perrin later. We didn't get something that reflected back on that. We got Aram dying,
Yeah.
but Aram dying because he became an animal, and there was no follow-up to that.
Yeah.
There was no follow-up to it. And I think that was the whole point of Aram's storyline was to bring Perrin into reflection on this thing needs to be this is pure, this is lovely, this is something we need to hold on to. But we didn't get that. We just got Aram trying to kill him and him fighting back. And actually, it was animal on animal at that point.
I really thought when Perrin went looking for Fail, I thought he was going to run into Ilya and her husband's name, the actual leader, which I can't remember because he just disappears in the freaking series. Um, dang it, I can't remember his name. Anyway, um, I thought he was going to run into them because they were out there helping. gather up the wounded.
Rayum? What was his name?
Yeah, I'll look it up here in a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, the I really thought that he was going to run into them, and I feel like he really should have, because that
Hmm.
would have
I mean, what would have been better than
brought that
them
full
being
circle.
captured by the Shido as well? And then them being where Rand needed them to be after Perrin had saved them.
Mm.
I mean, that writes itself right
So,
there.
something to bring those stories back together, because
Hmm. Now,
that
now
I
in Sanderson's defense, there were a lot of strings to bring together.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
he had all the red strings on the conspiracy theory board to follow,
Right.
but I think that was an important one, especially as important as it was for just the Aiel storyline in general, and bringing back to the Age of Legends and having this balance with that Rand finally felt with growing the apples and you know being violent, having the volcano. The volcano was a representation of violence,
Mm.
and there was the other side of it that he came out of, and it's balance was the key, and I think that was dropped there. But in real life, gosh, we need to punish criminals, right? The justice system, but we also not need not serve vengeance in the process, which is going to be the hard part with this. I don't remember his name, but I don't care to remember his name. The shooter.
Hmm.
Where's justice here?
Yeah.
He's turned the world on its head.
Yeah. And um Rayan. Yeah, you're right. You're on the right track.
Yep.
Rayan is the Mahdi of that band of the Tinkers.
Hmm.
Um, but that idea was a big idea of how do you balance a violent, dangerous world with this noble idea of peace, of
Hmm.
living peaceably. And
Which they tried to with the dogs. They were deterrents. The dogs weren't violent, but they looked violent.
mhm.
Deterrents are helpful, but they don't stop everybody. Have you ever fought somebody on PCP? I have.
Well, to Sanderson and Jordan's credit, they do really tie up that thread, that part of the story, where Rayan kind of shocks Illa because he's like, maybe the way of the leaf isn't for everyone. And she's like, what do you
Yeah,
mean?
when they were with the bodies, right?
When
Yeah,
they're
yeah, in the field.
helping
Yeah.
look for the wounded, gather up the bodies, and carry supplies and things for as look, the Trollocs, they don't care about the leaf. They will just
Hmm.
trample it and burn it all. So it's important for us to hold to this value because the world needs to see it,
Hmm.
but the world also needs those people out there. And 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 we're not going to go do that because that's against our moral and personal code, but we can help them and not break our moral and personal code. And
Hmm.
so I do think that was a great moment there of bringing those ideas full circle.
Yeah, you know what? And I will stand corrected there because that's also what brought Logain back around.
That's true.
Yeah. So okay. So
I hadn't
I
thought about that. That the
yeah.
Tinkers aren't there for Perrin or Rand, but they are there. Well, they are there for Rand
They're there
earlier,
for the last
but
battle.
in the last
Yeah.
battle, I hadn't considered that's kind of a big deal. That they're the ones who are there, and they're the ones who get ambushed by all those Trollocs and stuff, and they're the ones pleading to Logain, help us.
Hmm. So okay. So I take back what I said that they did have a purpose there at the end, and it was a good one. Because
Yeah.
Logain needed that. Logain. Well, he had Min going back to our Min going back to our the beginning of this. She saw him as the one who came after. and his glory, and he needed that to actually achieve what it was.
To be a good and noble
Hmm.
leader rather than a vengeful leader who had been also put in a box and abused.
Hmm.
And again, back to what we're rambling and ranting about here is what helped him? What helped him shed that that anger? It was the connection. That human connection of real people in trouble saying help us, we're being,
Hmm.
you know, we're being slaughtered here, but then also the connection with his woman.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna let's bring this home. Let's bring this home. You hear the term touch grass,
Mm.
which is good. Nature is great. Going out and being in nature is great. But we're humans, and humans are social beings. When I say touch grass, have real human connection. Not going down to Washington Avenue where everybody's got makeup on and is being a fake version of themselves to try to get laid at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, no. You would like this, go to church. Go meet people. If you're a religious, go to church. I do it at school. I go and just talk to people. Uh,
If you're just religious curious, just find a Bible study. If you don't want to go to church, if you're not comfortable going to church, find a Bible study and say, "Hey, what's this all about?" You
oh,
know?
there's something that's around. It's called a food bank.
Yeah.
Go put food in a freaking bag and hand it to somebody. Go to a sporting event. Feel that energy that happens when you're at a sporting event. That's pretty cool. Uh,
Live music you've talked about. You're going
Live
to,
music. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
going to a concert on Wednesday. I can't wait because I haven't been to one in 3 years or so. You know, it go feel that. Go walk around your neighborhood. One of the best things that happened in my neighborhood was fucking Hurricane Barrel because I got my two chainsaws, I got them going, and I walked down the street, and everybody that had branches down or trees half falling down or whatever, we cut them up and we had a good old time, and everybody got a little sweaty, but we met each other. And we had I mean, again, it was community. Back Hurricane Ike 2008, uh, that was back when me and my wife were super poor and we were living in a not so nice neighborhood. But one person on the block had a generator. Guess where everybody spent every night? Was at that person's house with their generator drinking margaritas. It was fantastic because she could freeze ice and made very cold drinks on a very hot day because nobody had power. We didn't have power for 4 weeks,
Oof.
but we had 4 weeks of community.
Mhm.
And yeah, people, we live off of each other. Even if you're an introvert like me, I
Mhm.
still need to go get and be with people, family. The circles just expand out of that. So you got your family, you got your extended family, you got your friends, you got all of that. Be with people. That's my touching grass. Be with people. Be with people in nature if you want to do both.
Yeah. It's a great thing. I mean, how many times have we talked to just random people while we've been out fishing?
Hmm.
Because hey, you catch anything?
Especially
Hey,
because gay guys love me.
well, there's that. Uh, uh, what bait are you using? What you come here, is this a regular spot? Blah 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 blah. Don't even never even know the person's name. But you know what? You're talking, you're connecting.
Hmm.
You are connecting with a human being over something shared.
Hmm.
That's that's a good boost to your mental health.
Yeah, we brought it up before. The number one contributor to longevity in your life is quality relationship. This is actually studied. This is data driven. This is not, we're just making shit up because it feels good. Longest longitudinal study. It wasn't exercise. It wasn't drinking. It wasn't smoking. It was more powerful than smoking, was quality
That's a big deal.
relationships. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, if you've looked at the literature on smoking,
It's
that's a
pretty
big
bad.
effing deal. Yeah.
The Surgeon General warning is justified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that says something about how powerful that connection is if it can override the physiological damage of something like that.
And bring it back to the Wheel of Time. That was Rand's boogeyman. Was he wanted to separate himself from humanity so bad because he thought he had to.
Mm. And then he realized what he's saying to Perrin there at the end, from that section I read from in Memory of Light is I realized that even though it's hard, even though it hurts sometimes, it's still better.
Hmm.
As you pointed out, everything's hard.
Relationships are freaking hard.
Choose your hard.
Yeah, yeah. Choose
You
your
know,
hard.
being lonely is hard. Connecting with people is hard. Which hard do you want? Which
Yeah,
is going to give you more in the end?
friendships are hard. I mean, we can just talk about our own selves here, without having to expand it out. Is how many times have we disagreed on this freaking thing
Mhm.
right here in front of everybody? We do it more in our personal lives,
Oh yeah.
and but we're still friends because we're like brothers,
Mhm.
because we love each other, and we also understand how important that bond is to our health. And that's being a little selfish because it is important to my health to have somebody that I can pick up my phone at any given time. I could probably call you at 4 in the morning and you would answer if it woke you up, right? If it
That's
woke
the
you up, yeah, that's the other part. The hearing, you're getting old, all that stuff. But if you saw my phone, your phone blinking with my name to call you because we normally just text, you would say, "What the heck is wrong?" And you would pick up the phone. And the same on the other end. And it's just this. It's try not to get sad here. I wanted to end on a positive note, but the fact that 1 out of 7 people can't do that makes me sad.
Well, back to, we keep using this example, but it's such a great example of the Korean love on the spectrum. And all of those people were sad and lonely and had where they were when they applied for that show, they had no prospect of a relationship.
Mm.
And yet, especially that first guy who was so hardcore on the spectrum, you're like, ugh, I can't even watch this. It's so uncomfortable. And yet, look how far he came in the end, where he was connecting by that second of the last night or whatever that was, where they were
Hmm.
all together around a table and everyone was laughing and he was connecting with everyone there at that table. And now my wife had gone and looked up, after interviews and with the cast and talking about it, he's dating someone.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He's got a girlfriend and has had for weeks now.
You ended this positively because that makes me happy. That makes me super happy. Yeah.
He was a statistic, and then he said, "I'm not going to be a statistic," and he broke out of that.
Hmm.
So back
Wow.
back to where we were last
Well,
week or
but
the week
that's
before about
also
rigid thinking.
a what can you benefit from listening this far into our conversation is this is going to sound harsh when I say it, but it's actually a great thing. What is your role in your own loneliness?
Mm, mm,
His role was the fact that he just had no idea of how to connect and he had to be taught, which realistically we all do. And that's you brought up Adam Lane Smith earlier. Uh, that's attachment theory, right? That's Freudian stuff. Eric Erickson, all of those. It's still around because it's legitimate. Because you're taught how to attach to people or how to have relationships from your early experiences with your parents or your family. I would say your family, whoever is your family figures when you're young. Well, obviously something broke in his. It's not the fault of his parents. He had autism. He had all of these things. So it's not necessarily their fault, but something did break along the way. But the silver lining was he was able to learn.
mhm,
And we're all able to learn. I know what my issues are. I it's not easy to overcome, but I know what they are because I do tend to be a kind of a loner and go away and just detach and be myself. But I can overcome that. And when I do overcome that and I'm around people and I'm connecting, it feels freaking amazing. We can all do that. Every single one of us, no matter what your background.
Yep. So find make find a way to get started. Figure out what is the first step I can take that I can do and achieve and be successful at. All right, get it. And then you can figure out the next step and the next and the next.
I'll piggyback on previous advice. Take what you're interested in and lean in it because
Mm.
somebody else is. One of the things I always I think I have an invention and I start Googling and it turns out someone had the exact same thought because you're one of 7.6 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
If you have a thought, somebody else had it. So if you're into, I don't know, name something weird, but not like crazy.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Yeah. You'd be surprised how many of my peers in school are into Dungeons and Dragons, by the way. I had a professor that makes her own dice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we'll say Dungeons and Dragons. Say you're into that. Find a freaking gaming community
Yeah.
and go in there and play and make connections, right? It's awesome because not only are you having fun, you are having fun with people.
Yep. All right. Well, go do it.
Easier said than done, but at least get the interwebs out and look for it in
You
your
you
area.
you have at least two, whoever you are, you've got at least two people here rooting for you.
Yes, this is true. This is true. We love you guys
All
and
right. We'll see
gals.
y'all next time.
Guys in the California sense means everybody.
All right, dudes.
All right, later.